or a say in the State House, but I do have the perspective of how many folks are being impacted by these ridiculous inflationary gains, these unrealized gains on their homes. Because I get more complaints on property taxes, and I'm not sure complaint is the right word. I would say pleas for help on property taxes than any other issue. Do I get people who complain about the sewer? Yes. Do I get people who say there's too much noise from the road or the airport? Of course. Do I get complaints about flooding and potholes? Absolutely. Whether you're a councilman or a commissioner, and I've been both, those are the complaints you will always have. And we have to work to respond and to help where we can, at least point people in the right direction. I know how to fix those problems. I can work on a pothole. I can deal with a flood. But this ridiculous increase in property taxes is a generational, a once-in-a-generation problem. And it's always been there to some extent. They've been hiking our taxes surreptitiously year after year after year, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough that the people really spoke up and said no. Only now that the taxes have gotten so high that folks literally can't afford them are they waking up and calling for help. And that's what's really different this time. I understand, I like to say I'm not a politician, but I know how to speak politician. I can interpret for you. And when a politician says, it's very complicated, I've been working on it, trust me, I care about it, I'm with you, but they really mean they have absolutely no intention of doing anything. They've already made up their mind, and they think if they patronize you a little bit, you'll go away and leave them alone. That's what they mean when they say it's complicated, it's a difficult issue. Well, what isn't complicated and difficult in life, right? Even opening a door can be complicated if you want to make it that way. But this is really a simple problem. You've been hiking taxes vis-a-vis inflation for years, and thanks to Joe Biden, inflation shot through the damn ceiling. Suddenly, people are being taxed out of their own homes. Seniors are being hit the worst. But everyone is suffering from this, and so everyone's been raising their hand and saying, this has got to stop. The problem is, at every level of government, they've gotten so addicted to our money that the immediate response you get when you say we need to reform property taxes, they go, well, how will government afford this? It's like, government's not paying the bills. Government doesn't afford anything. We're the ones paying, and we're telling you. We're not asking, we're telling you we can't afford it anymore. And I'm not really concerned with what you have to cut or what hard times your government agency is going to go through. Government is supposed to sacrifice for and serve the people, not the other way around. So if you've got a difficult budget season, God bless you, I feel for you, but that's your job. And if you don't want a budget and you don't want to make hard choices, let me tell you something. You shouldn't be a school board member. You shouldn't be a councilman, a mayor, a commissioner, and you certainly shouldn't be a state senator or a state representative, because that is the biggest part of each and every one of those jobs. It's to budget. And we know that about 60% plus of our property taxes are going to the public schools. We know that's where it's going. So when your state reps and senators tell you, well, go to a school board meeting and ask them to cut your taxes, come on, people. We've been going to school board meetings and asking them to cut our taxes for years, for decades. When I see Mayor John Mara and Councilwoman Nancy Mara, they go to Willoughby Eastlake Public Schools meetings so often that, well, frankly, I think they have like a sign on the door saying, don't let these two in. They have pushed and pushed and pushed for accountability, and they get ignored. And sometimes, I hate to say it, even the Republican school board members don't listen.
Politicians.
But when state reps and senators tell you, go to the school board meeting, well, yeah, I think every citizen should go to their school board meeting, their council meeting, their commissioners meeting, when there are issues that concern them, to speak up and let their voice be heard. I agree with that, but they're being facetious, because they know darn well that government isn't going to voluntarily cut itself. If the schools wanted to cut our taxes, they would have done it a long damn time ago. They don't. They're already looking for ways to tax us more. I'm not going to name names, Wycliffe, but there's some school districts that are trying to raise that are trying to raise property taxes at this most inopportune time. And by the way, I love Wickliffe. It's a beautiful community. I live right next door in Willoughby Hills. But how tone deaf is it to raise taxes now? I mean, come on. There's no way. I don't care how much you say you need the money. Find a way to cut the budget in another sector. Because ultimately, when government raises taxes, you're not really accomplishing anything. You're passing the buck. And I want to be very clear. You're passing the buck from your table to everyone's kitchen table, instead of government doing the work of Elon Musk and Doge, and cutting their budget, cutting the fat, modernizing, streamlining, and doing more with less. They're saying now all you have to do it. You can't go out to eat on Tuesdays. You don't get to go visit your grandchildren. You can't buy that plane ticket. Heck, you can't even afford to pay for your medication because we don't want to do the difficult work of budgeting. You know, Brian mentioned the CFOs. That's literally their full-time job, doing the budget. They should do nothing but looking for tax savings every single day. But they haven't had to. Nobody's pushed them, nobody's forced them, and so they have gotten away with raising our taxes every single 3 years, and they're shocked that people are stepping up and saying no more. And I want to say no more in 3 different ways. Number one, there should be no tax on no tax on unrealized gains. The reality is our property values should be set at sales price. It's what a willing buyer paid a willing seller. It's an objective value, and we can fire all the bureaucrats who do nothing but revalue our homes if we just say sales price is the tax value. It's fair, it's better, it's cheaper, it's done. That's number one. That takes away all the inflationary gains. Number two, I've said there should be a 100% property tax exemption for seniors. Instead of this tiny little homestead exemption that's barely enough to make the difference for the few people who are eligible for it, there should be a 100% property tax exemption for seniors, because when you turn 65, after 65 years of paying taxes, that is enough. But number three, if the state reps and senators will not listen to us, and to date, I've been hearing crickets, if they will not listen, and they will not reform property taxes in a meaningful way, if they say it's complicated, they wish they could help, they can't afford it, then we need to play the bad cop. And we need to get 500,000 signatures and take all their property tax money away. Yeah. And then they can cry boo-hoo-hoo. That's what we need to do, folks. Good cop, we go to them and say, fix this problem right now. People probably won't even care. They're not going to sign this petition. They're going to be happy that you stood up and you did something good for them, and they'll be able to live with the property tax system that I just described. If seniors get 100% exemption and everybody else gets their property value frozen at sales price, I think most people would live with that, would let it go. But if you say no, if you ignore us, we're taking all your money. And now you're going to have to deal with a much bigger hole to fill. But I'm not going to cry for you, because that's your job and you asked for it. That's something you got to remember about every single elected official. Each and every one of us, some of us are crazy, each and every one of us asked for this job, whether it's mayor of Timberlake, Lake County commissioner, or state representative. So don't cry me a river about how it's impossible to do it. If it's so impossible from your perspective, you ran for the wrong thing. You're not qualified for the job. Let somebody else take it. So I want to applaud your president, Brian Massey, for the yeoman's work he has done to end property taxes in Ohio and finally make these people listen. Thank you, Brian. But that's the fight statewide. What about locally? Let me tell you something, folks. As frustrating as it is to watch the nonsense that went on in D.C. under Joe Biden, as crazy as Columbus is today, even though we supposedly have a Republican majority, we still have to be watchful with our local government. Whether it's school board, trying to jack our taxes up even in this inflationary environment, or your county. And I will tell you, when I was appointed Lake County Commissioner, and that's, I think that's the only way someone like me ends up in a job like this. I'm a member of the Liberty Coalition. I've been a central committee member for the Republican Party, Willoughby Hills DD, for many years, and I never thought in a million that I'd end up a Lake County Commissioner. But a young, talented lawyer, not me, someone else, a young, talented lawyer ran for county commissioner. He won in a landslide. He got more votes than anyone in history. That record still stands, by the way. He's still the most popular commissioner ever. Resigned less than 6 days into the job for a conflict of interest. Not really sure what it was. Good guy, but here today, gone tomorrow. And suddenly there had to be an appointment. And let me tell you, the Liberty Coalition came out in droves to vote for me for county commissioner. And we ended up winning in a little church hall, St. John Vianney's in Mentor, with 79 votes. And let me tell you something, folks. The very next day, when I went to be sworn in as county commissioner, I found out that I had gotten 79 votes to become the 79th commissioner in the history of Lake County. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in God. And I believe God puts you where you're meant to be. We walk the path that's put in front of us. It's our job to be open to God's will. And so here I am, brand new county commissioner, never saw this coming, and right off the rip, everyone's trying to get you to raise taxes. And here's something that folks don't understand. Even the Republicans, even the ones that publicly say they're against raising taxes, privately, like the devil on your shoulder will say, I'd support you if you would raise the sales tax. We really need it for law enforcement. Republicans love law enforcement. Well, yes, we do. But we're not willing to bankrupt our family, mortgage our house, and sell our kids into slavery to pay for law enforcement. There's a limit, right? We're going to support law enforcement like we're going to support all good things in moderation, in what we can afford as a community. Support doesn't mean you mortgage the future to spend everything now. Support means having a sustainable, conservative budget where we can support law enforcement not just for 5 years, but for the future, for 50, 100, 150 years. We need to think in terms of centuries and generations when we're stewards of government, not in terms of one election to the next. So let me tell you, as disgusted as we are by the liberals in D.C. and the liberals in Columbus, I want you to understand that that fight is still very real for your school boards, your city councils, your county commission, and a lot of folks who you think are on your side, who have an R by their name. If they think they can get away with it and get a fast one past you, if they think they can get someone else to be the bad guy and vote to raise your taxes and they can just step back and spend the money, they will do it. And that's why, I've been called a lot of things over the years. Some of them I can't repeat. But the one nickname I do like is Commissioner No. Because that word, no, is the single most beautiful word in the English language. And it seems that public schools have stopped teaching it. Because our elected officials do not know how to say no. They go, well, this is important, and that's important, and we must support this, and we must support that. Everything in life is about priorities. If you've run your own business, if you've raised a family, if you've had a job, heck, if you've run your own personal budget, you understand you can't spend more than you're taking in very long before you go to hell in a handbasket. But our politician friends do not get it, even at the local level. And it is our job to hold them accountable. So if you want to know why I'm still standing here and why I'm still taking the punches, it's because I recognize that even at the local level, even when 17 out of the 18 countywide elected officials are registered Republicans, they're not as conservative as I am. They're not as conservative as you are, and we need to push. Now, as long as we're forceful and we hold folks accountable, I'm with you. They're always with us if we're watching them, if we're pushing, if they know that our vote is contingent on them doing the right thing. But the moment they think the cat's away and the mice can play, it's amazing how people propose the single biggest tax increase in Lake County history. And I will say, it was only with your help, 2 weeks of pressure in 2023 that we were able to rescind the single greatest tax increase in Lake County history. And as long as I'm a county commissioner, I will never allow them to raise our taxes. And I actually had a Madison Township trustee come into my meeting. And he said, John, I want to quote you. You said, I will never raise taxes. Never, ever. You're going to die on that hill. George H.W. Bush said he wouldn't raise taxes, and then he lost re-election. And I responded to this trustee, good. He didn't deserve to win re-election because he didn't keep his promise. The problem wasn't saying, I promise, read my lips, no new taxes. That was a good conservative Republican promise. The problem was he didn't keep it. He got elected and he thought he could do whatever the hell he wanted. He looked pretty good standing next to Ronald Reagan. A lot of fake Republicans look pretty good when they stand next to conservatives. But you got to remember, the only reason George H.W. Bush was a good vice president was because he was under Reagan. As soon as he was off on his own, he's appointing Justice Souter and trying to raise our taxes. So we need to remember that the most dangerous virus in Ohio is not coronavirus. It's not COVID-19, i.e. the flu, the cold. The most dangerous virus in Ohio, and it's still going around, folks, is the rhinovirus. That's the most dangerous virus. We've got Republicans elected to everything, at every level of government. The only reason we are not succeeding, the only reason we falter or fail or fall short of our conservative values in Ohio is because some rhino sells us out. And I don't need to say any names, you already know them.
Don't worry.
But we need to stand together, folks. We need to stand together with Lobbyists for Citizens, with the Tea Party, with the conservative wing of the Lake County Republican Party, and we need to hold our local, our state, and our federal officials to account. If we do that, if you do that, if we all do it together, we have the potential to have the golden age, not just of America, but of Ohio. And of Lake County, Ohio in particular. And this is my home. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to fight for my home. That's why I ran for city councilman in the craziest city in this county. Nobody likes to be an elected official in Willoughby Hills. That's why I went for county commissioner on a hope and a prayer, because I believe that I could make a difference. So let me just close by saying this. If I've done anything good for Lake County in my life, it's because of the support that you've given me. Understand that the liberals will always attack the good conservatives, will always rip apart the folks who support Trump and support the real Republicans. But it's you who keep us going. With your support, with your prayers. Sometimes it's just a kind word saying good job to encourage the school board member, the councilman, your commissioner to keep fighting. Because it's hard out there. And people forget, local elected officials, heck, even Congress people, they're human beings too. And they need us not just to hold them accountable, but to support them and pray for them to make sure they can get across the finish line. And I know that no one prays harder than our Vice President, Nancy Mara. So God bless you, and God bless Lake County, Ohio.
When Vivek Ramaswamy was in town, did you have an opportunity to speak with him regarding taxes?
I had a very brief opportunity to shake his hand, and I will say it was a bit of a funny conversation. I'll share it with you word for word. Before I could say much of anything, Vivek said, "It's so good that you're here. Young people need to be involved in politics, and kids like you are the future." And I must have looked at him just a little funny. He's like, "How old are you?" And I said, 41, older than you, Vivek. So I would say kids like Vivek and I are the future, and I'm grateful that he's here. He did speak on property taxes as he gave his speech to the whole room, but I didn't get more than a minute with him taking a picture like everybody else. So I'll admit, I didn't really have a chance to say much. But I was gratified to hear, and I certainly applauded very loudly at the front table, that Vivek supports dramatic cuts to property taxes. He's not quite as far down the road as Mr. Massey, but he's getting there.
Okay, so John, apparently the state of Ohio said it was illegal for schools to be taking money from property taxes, and it's going on and on and on, and nobody's doing a thing about it, and that's part of what I think transpired this remove the property tax.
So let me clarify there. I hear that all the time. The Ohio Supreme Court has ruled that it's illegal to pay for public schools with property taxes. It's not quite what those cases stand for. The complaint that those Supreme Court cases raise is that local property taxes stay with local schools, which creates uneven revenue sources so that wealthy communities have more money and poorer communities have less. So I hate to say it, you might actually like those cases less than the current system, because what they were trying to argue is Lake County should be subsidizing, East Cleveland public schools. So you should not just pay for your schools, you should pay for schools in neighboring communities with less resources as well. They weren't saying property taxes themselves to pay for school was unconstitutional. They felt they should all go in one big pot and then be distributed out. So I'm not sure you like those cases. Maybe you do, but they did not hold property taxes unconstitutional, period. It's a bit of a misnomer.
Okay, well, thank you. So is it where they go into one pot and get distributed evenly?
No.
Or that's
No.
not happening? Okay.
We've really never addressed those cases, to be honest with you.
The new public safety center, it started to come out of the ground, and it's, 2027, I believe, is completion date. What will happen with the existing jail?
So let me start by saying, in 2023, when they tried to raise our taxes, they said it was impossible to build the jail without raising taxes. And I'm proud to be the guy who made the impossible possible, because we are building the Lake County Safety Center without raising taxes. Amen?
Amen.
But to Brian's point, what happens to the old jail? I got to tell you, that building, anyone who's had the opportunity to tour it like Brian and I have, there is no residual value. I mean, just to give you one example, the external mortar and brick walls are buckling outward from water damage, and we have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars every year just to keep bricks from falling on people on the sidewalk. I mean, that's how bad that building has gotten. There is no fixing that building. It's getting increasingly expensive just to legally keep it open without a public safety issue. We don't want the jail committing crimes. When the jail murders people, you have a problem. So unfortunately, the jail has to be demolished, and one of two things are going to happen to that plot of land. It'll either be paved and we have a new parking lot, or a parking garage will be built up there to give even more parking for the downtown Paynesville area. If there is enough resources, I think a parking garage makes sense, and I will say the city of Paynesville has really pushed for a parking garage there. So we'll see, but it'll either be a parking lot or a parking garage.
Yeah, John, regarding the new safety center, the fact that the old one, I think, was built in 1988, you would think you would get more utility out of that structure. Are they planning this building to be another 30-year building, or 50-year, or 70-year?
There is no they here, Mike.
Yeah,
it's me. And I am planning for this to be a 50 to 60-year building. That's the way we're doing it. The original jail was supposed to be 50 to 60 years is the appropriate, typical, useful life for a jail. And the fact that we only got 35 some years, it opened in the early 90s actually, I think construction started in the 80s, that's atrocious. But unfortunately, the builder was politically connected. They built the jails in Ashtabula, Lake County, several others. The firm literally went bankrupt before the Lake County jail was even completed, so there was no one to sue when they didn't finish the job, and the job they did do was atrocious. So unfortunately, Lake County, decades and decades ago, hired a very politically connected firm, probably repaying political favors, and they got a terrible result. 35 years from a jail is not acceptable, and frankly, if the jail we're building now comes down in 30 years, you should find me with pitchforks and torches and run me out of the country.
But this company has a reputable, it has a consistent background of...
So let me say, Gilbane is one of the largest jail and safety center construction firms in the country. They have built hundreds of facilities. We have sent the sheriff to tour facilities that they've built. We've done our homework. We've considered many different possible designs. We're using brick. We're using steel. We are building this thing solid. Frankly, I am hopeful it might last more than 60 years. I mean, we'd all love a future where jails aren't necessary. I don't see that quite yet. I don't see that happening. But I want this jail to last well until everyone in this room is dead. That's my goal, and myself included. And I plan on living a long time.
Well, you know, I promised somebody a long life, so I intend to die before that comes down.
So in regard to the jail being approximately 60 or 70 years, and that would maybe have to be replaced, my home is 70 years old. I've got some serious problems developing in the foundation. But my property value up. And when I go to Lake County and say, well, this is the problems we're having, oh, it's fair to other values in your area. But nobody comes and looks at the house. They don't really know what's going on with this. In the Willoughby East Lake Schools, they tore their buildings down and built new ones at my cost. So this is part of the issue we're dealing with, is our houses are getting older, but they keep saying they're more and more valuable. But if they can't have the jail last more than 60 years, or 70, hopefully, how do they expect my house to go last that long? And how does that value hold? This is what has us upset.
And you should be upset, but this is exactly what Mayor Mara talks about when he describes the problems with the mass appraisal method. They're not actually going out to your home and evaluating its quality and worth. They're simply looking at a map and some overhead photos from a drone, as well as comparable sales in the area. And based on a complicated formula, they're saying everybody's home goes up with inflation. It's not right, it's not fair. It's why I've said, and I will say again, your value should be based on your sales price, period. It should be locked in at what you bought the house for until you sell it. And that way we always have an objective value. What a willing buyer paid a willing seller. We shouldn't have the nonsense of hiring an army of bureaucrats just to value our properties and tax us more. I mean, heck, it would be more efficient to just hand government our wallet and say, take it all. Why are we hiring people to think of new ways to raise our taxes? That doesn't make any sense. So you're right to be angry, and that's why we need to abolish this type of system altogether.
John, real quick, okay, one more question, and then we have to wrap it up.
Why did they raise the land value so much in Lake County versus the houses? At least in my area. You know, the land value doubled, then the house went up some.
The answer is based on a complex formula given to us by the state of Ohio. And I will tell you right now, a lot of people have said, why won't our county auditor stand up for us and just refuse to put these values through? I want to be fair to the county auditor and the county treasurer. They have a ministerial duty under state law. They don't have the discretion to decide whether or not to raise your taxes, whether or not to collect your taxes. They are literally following the Ohio Revised Code. And FYI, when the auditor gets the initial values on your land, on your house, he doesn't just send out the bill at that point. The auditor actually has to send those proposed values to the Ohio Department of Taxation, which actually gives the final decision and approval on your value. It doesn't even happen in county. It goes down to Columbus, and Ohio Department of Taxation makes the final call. So all of this is a state issue. And when your state reps and senators go, it's a local issue, go to your local school board, they're really just saying, I don't want to do anything, I don't care, I don't want to fix this, I don't have the guts to actually stand up and cut your taxes. So it's not right, but it's the state, and we've got to change things at the state level.
John, what do you say when school board members say that they have no control?
I say, I know it's hard. I know that if you do your job, you cut the budget, and you return the money to the taxpayer, you're going to have everyone in that building hate you. How do I know that? Because when I killed the biggest tax increase in Lake County history, I killed a lot of raises. I killed a lot of new corner offices. I killed a lot of new jobs for this guy's cousin and that person's brother. I am well aware of the pushback that a school board member will get if they say, you know what, we don't need to have a principal for every grade. We don't need to have an assistant superintendent. We could have one administrator do all the hiring and firing for the district. If you did that, you could save millions of dollars for the taxpayer. You could give it back. But everyone in that building will hate you. Just like everyone in the Lake County Administration Center hated Commissioner No. Because you will be killing their money train. And if there is any way to PO a government bureaucrat, it's getting between them and their money. So can the school board members do it? Yes, they can. What makes it hard is that most of them are still Democrats, because unfortunately, the Democratic Party has focused on school board races, even in Republican areas like ours, counting on the fact they're nonpartisan races and they can sneak people through. And even when we get Republicans in, they're faced with this really daunting reality that they can either just go along and get along and everyone will say, here's the honorable so-and-so, and they get an applause when they come in the room, or they can be the devil, and they can say no, and they can stop the money train. And it's really hard to do. I know, because I was the bad guy as city councilman. I said no more $5,000 a year raises for the folks in City Hall. You know, we're not going to give bigger raises to bureaucrats than we give to police and firefighters. Man alive, did those secretaries in City Hall, including the mayor's campaign manager, hate my guts. I was the guy who killed their raise every year. This person would get a $5,000 raise until John Plecnik got elected. You know what? She was so PO'd, she ran against me. And her only platform was defeat John Plecnik. Well, she failed. But let me tell you, in the process of all that, I got sued, slandered, attacked. I even had one assassination attempt. I kid you not. Someone literally took the lug nuts, all but one, off my driver's side front tire, hoping that I would get to a high enough speed, crash, burn it. And they did that the day before the election day, because they knew they couldn't beat me at the ballot box, so they tried to kill me instead. And let me tell you, when I showed up there still alive, there were some pretty surprised people. So I kind of know. I kind of know who they were, you know? When they look at you like, oh, how's he still alive? You're like, oh yeah, I thought so. But that's on city council, folks. This is local. This is not Congress or even state representative. The fact you're willing to try to kill a councilman because he says no to your raise, I know that it is tough to be a school board member and do the right thing. Nonetheless, I deliver this message to the school board members who may or may not be watching and listening right now. If you're not prepared to cut the budget and return the savings to the taxpayer, if it's too hard for you, I understand, because this is brutal. This is a blood sport. But if you can't do it, you need to get out the way and let someone else with a tougher stomach do the work, because we cannot afford this anymore. And most of the waste in local government is at the school level right now. It's where most of our property taxes are going. It's where the administrative state is ballooned out of control. We need the little red schoolhouse, folks. We need teachers, and we need discipline, and we need kids who understand you're here to learn or you're expelled. You have those things, kids are going to learn, it's going to be good. Doesn't take a lot of money, by the way. It's pretty cheap to do. But you got to get rid of all this army of superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals, assistant principals, secretaries, assistant secretaries. My God, everybody's got a secretary and an assistant. Even the secretaries have secretaries now. You just got to fire these people. I said it before, I'll say it again. If you fired half the administrators and you paid the other half as much, you'd still have too many overpaid administrators.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.